mean, here we go. I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. And congratulations to you. I was uh, with the macular degeneration disappearing.
Yes, yes.
What an
I'm so
awesome
happy.
win.
Right, which makes me think maybe it was too much sugar in my body, you
It's
know?
very possible. Sugar does affect your vision. It absolutely
Mm-hmm.
does.
Yep, I heard you say that, and I'm like, "Ooh, I think so."
Yes, that's so awesome. So happy to hear that. And thank you. And that this goes for anybody listening or who's here now. If you have a win and you want to share with me, shoot me a text. I love to hear these stories. It just that makes my day. That's why I do shout outs, and you're on my list, so I thought I'd go ahead and do that. So I
Thank
guess
you.
I'll go ahead and start unless somebody has anything they want to share another win. But I'll go ahead and start then. So yeah, as I mentioned, we have Charlotte who just messaged me and said she had macular degeneration before she started the program, and now there's no signs of it. It's completely gone. I think that's what you said. So
That's it.
that is
Completely gone.
such a beautiful, beautiful thing. So
Yes.
congratulations to Charlotte. That's great. And Charlotte just finished the program. Kathy is down 15 pounds. And you guys, Kathy did not think she was doing well. She said, "Oh, this is moving too slow." And then we sat down and I'm like, "Girl, you're in your first month." 15 pounds in first month is really very, very good. So keep in mind 1 to 2 pounds a week is an ambitious but healthy goal. So if at the end of a whole month, that's 4 weeks, you get to 8 pounds. You get to 8 pounds, that's great. But if you're at 15, you're ahead of the game. You're stealing the show, you're doing great. So I know it's never as fast as you'd like it to go, but 15 pounds in that first month is fabulous. It's not slow motion. That's beyond the target. That's better than what we're looking for at this point. First month, we can lose a lot of water weight because it's a lot of toxins flushing out and we're lowering our carbohydrate intake. And carbohydrates, by the way, have us retaining water. So the minute we kind of drop the carbs, we drop that excess water. So at first, that's kind of why that happens that way. But um, be proud of yourself if you've lost 10 to 15 pounds in that first month for sure. So there's that. And then Cynthia, who just joined, hope you don't mind me sharing. You're getting a shout out. So Cynthia just finished her program. She's down about 35 pounds. She exceeded her goal, which is just so exciting. She's like, her clothes fit like the clothes that she hasn't worn forever. She can wear now. She said she feels good. Her digestion is completely better. She said one of the reasons she started because she was taking so many antacids, and that is all gone. So Cynthia, you're here on the call today. So congratulations to you. If you want to
Thank
share.
you.
Yeah, no, you did the work. You suited up, you showed up, you participate, you sent in your journals, you tracked your food, you took the advice when there was some oopsies happened along the way, and you made the corrections, and that's why you're here. And that's why
Yes.
you're on the shout out list. All
Thank
those,
you. I never dreamed I could do this, but I went into it with a do or die. I was going to do this or else. And I did. And people have started noticing, of course, and some
35
people
pounds
said,
is a lot.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And but I feel so much better. I have energy. Uh, Sometimes I post on Facebook things I've done around my home, and friends of mine said, I don't know where you're getting all this energy, but I said, well, a cleansed liver and less weight. I'm carrying around less. A 10-pound bag of sugar is pretty heavy. So I've lost 3 of those that I'm not
3.5.
That's
Yeah.
right. Three
Yes.
10-pound bags and then some. But I feel so much better. And I appreciate and I just feel like it was a godsend in the fact that my next step was diabetes, and I didn't want to go there. And so I knew there had to be an answer somewhere to do something, and without starving yourself to death, because I've tried
Yes.
that. And when you said you got to eat to lose weight, that makes a lot of sense, because your body shuts down. If you don't eat, it's going to shut you down.
Hmm.
So you've got to eat, but you just got to be aware of what you're eating.
Yes. And there's so many chronic diseases out there that we have the power to control on some level. I mean, some things get us and just kind of blindside us, but things like type 2 diabetes,
Right.
or, whatever, these are, it's all at what we, as one of my mentors says, it's what we put at the end of our fork really matters
That's right.
most, really makes such a huge
Well,
difference.
just before I started this program, I was having issues with low energy and different issues, and I thought it might have been my thyroid. So I was blaming all this extra weight that I had gained on my thyroids. And so my doctor sent me to uh in I don't know how you pronounce it, endocrinologist.
Yep.
And she said that my numbers were okay for my age, that I did not need to take thyroid medicine. And so when I got home, I thought, well, if I can't blame it on my thyroid, all I can blame it on is Dr. Peppers and Oreos and chips and that kind of stuff. So you got to do something about it. It's not like you can ask somebody, would you lose 10 pounds for me? It's you got to do it, and it's got to be up here. So thank you, everyone. I feel wonderful.
Well, thank you for that wonderful share, and congratulations to all of
Thank
the success that everybody on this call is achieving. So,
you.
um, I just love to hear that. So that's why I like the shout outs, because sometimes we get to a place where it feels impossible, and then we hear a shout out. Well, it's possible for some people, and it's possible for more people. You're like, what if I just go all in and do the deal? It could be possible for me too. I just want you guys to see there are possibilities, and that's why I do the shout outs. And it's a fun part of the segment anyway, but but
Thank
it's
you.
really nice. It's not always just about weight though. It's like
No.
Charlotte's got her vision, and you've got your energy and all the things, and we get to wear our favorite clothes and all the things. So congratulations to just everybody who's going all in and doing the deal. So,
Thank you.
all right, so let me. See. All right, so today we are talking about label reading, demystifying label reading, and we're going to go through all kinds of bits and pieces of what all that entails. So hopefully my objective is that after you guys finish this presentation, you guys will know, oop, come in. All right, so let me, okay. So, all right, so we got the shout outs. We've got the shout outs already out of the way. So there's that. Oh, I forgot to do the welcomes. We've got several new people. We've got Deborah, Evelyn, Christiana, Sherry, Betsy, Judy, Betty, Debbie, Heather, Carol, and Kathy, you're new too. So I'll give you that now that you're starting and you're in the call today. So welcome in and congratulations on starting. So we got that. We're going to talk about what the big food companies don't want me to tell you. I've touched on some of these things before, but no reason why not to touch it again. Well, I'm going to go into the macronutrients and then break them down, and then go and how that applies to reading the actual label. And then we're going to go through some ingredients so that you'll know what you're looking at when you're looking at ingredients labels. And then, of course, we will have Q&A at the end. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We've got our funnies here. Oh, okay. I just thought these were cute, and I used, when I first started doing this, I started telling like really corny jokes, but I kind of ran out of ideas. So then I started running into these, and I thought, well, these are kind of funny. You get a little visual out of the deal anyway. So, so welcome in, and this is my treat to those of you who showed up right at the very beginning. So this is for you. All right, so introduction, at some point, you guys are sending me a text or possibly an email. Typically it's text, and I don't care which one, whichever's easier for you. But you'll send me a picture of an ingredient, say, hey, Tammy, can I have that? Or you ask me, hey, can I have this? Can I have that? The first thing out of my mouth is always, well, what's in it? So it's helpful if you shoot me a picture of the nutrition label, but I also will need the ingredients list, because as you're going to learn today, the nutrition label is a clue. It's not an end all be all, oh, there's fat in it, to say no to it. It's not that, because we just need to know where the fat's coming from. But the point of this presentation today is that eventually you're not going to have to reach out to me. I'm not going to be your coach forever. You're welcome to keep joining these calls, but when you're out there at the store, I want you to be empowered. So once you know what your macronutrients are, when you're looking at your nutrition labels and you're looking at your ingredients list, eventually you're going to know exactly what you're looking at. So the little birdie can fly the nest and won't need me anymore. I miss the people that stop joining that I have come acquainted with, but anyway, that's my goal, is so that you know that you're making the right choice. But even after this call today, and you're still not sure, keep sending me your labels, the ingredients list, because I'll tell you why, and then it'll remind you of what you may have learned today. Because you're not going to memorize the whole thing, but it's just like practice. Every time you message me and I say yes or no, and here's why, it'll kind of reinforce what you've learned here today and what you've learned through this program. So you don't have to stop messaging me. I just want to give you the information so that eventually you don't have to anymore. So there's that. All right, so let's dive in what the food companies don't want me to tell you. Number one, made with whole grains. That would imply that the whole thing is made with 100% whole grains. Whole grains, that sounds like it's good, but it doesn't mean that they're 100% whole grains. There might be a tablespoon of 100% whole grains, and the rest of it is that processed stuff. Fiber has been removed, nutrition has been removed. So made with whole grain is not a stamp of approval. I'm not saying it's all bad, but I'm just saying it's kind of a play on words. The big box diet companies don't want me to tell you that this is not a stamp of approval. It's not, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just not a stamp of approval. Cholesterol free, again, same thing. That's not a stamp of approval. Cholesterol free can be a good thing. If your doctor has told you your cholesterol is too high, especially your LDLs or your bad cholesterols, you want to start consuming foods and living a lifestyle that would help lower your cholesterol. But what the food companies are doing is they'll put a cholesterol-free statement on the front of a product. But I can tell you right now, if it's like a peanut butter or a plant-based item, guess what? Nothing plant-based like a peanut butter or an almond butter, something that did not come from an animal, came from a plant, never had cholesterol in the first place. So if you see 2 jars of peanut butter, next to each other, and one says cholesterol free and one doesn't, and your doctor said you need to be, watching your cholesterol, don't be paying extra 50 cents or $1 or whatever more for the cholesterol free one, because I can promise you they're both cholesterol free unless they've added butter to that peanut butter, actual butter, or there's other ingredients other than peanuts and salt or whatever. So I'm not saying cholesterol free is bad. I'm just saying it's not a stamp of approval. And it's a tricky trick that will have you paying more for a product that was probably already cholesterol free in the first place. All natural There's no real hoops that any company has to go through. It originally had to be something that was natural, but sugar is all natural in a sense where it came from the sugar cane, but the way it's processed, obviously we don't want sugar. So it's not a stamp of approval. I'm not saying all natural things are bad. I'm just saying you've got to do some more investigation before you know it's a choice that you want to choose or not. Natural flavors, same thing. Natural flavors have to have come from something natural originally. However, they can also add chemicals to it. So when we're looking at an ingredient list and it says natural flavors, understand that there's likely other man-made chemicals mixed in with those natural flavors as well. So it is not always a good choice. You really just want to be mindful of that and careful of that. Plant-based, same thing. Plant-based is not bad. I'm not saying plant-based is bad. In fact, we should have at least half of our plate should be vegetables, if not 3/4 of that plate. So we really want to consume a higher level of vegetables. That's where we get our vitamins, our minerals, our nutrients, our fiber, antioxidants. That's your anti-aging stuff. So we definitely want to eat a lot of vegetables, but if something's labeled plant-based, it's not the automatic stamp of approval, because sometimes it has other stuff in it that's plant-based. That's not a good choice. Sugar could be in this product that is labeled all plant-based, because it is, but we don't want sugar. Soybean oil could be in that product. Is it plant-based? Yep. But we don't want that. But is it plant-based? Yes, it is. So we really have to do a deeper dive into what's actually in our food before we say, okay, plant-based is a good choice. A lot of your those fake meats, those Impossible Burgers or the Morningstar, stuff like that, they can say plant-based, but it doesn't mean that it's a healthy choice. It doesn't mean it's low glycemic. It doesn't mean it doesn't have chemicals. So just be mindful of that. Gluten-free, kind of the same category as cholesterol-free. A lot of times products, these companies will put the stamp of gluten-free on something that never had gluten in the first place. But guess what? We're all paying more for these products because we want to be gluten-free. Somebody said gluten is bad. And I'll talk about gluten a little bit later today, but I don't think the gluten can be a problem for a lot of people. So I'm not dismissing that, but I think it's what they're putting on the wheat and the gluten that's bothering our guts so much. Sugar-free versus no sugar added. Now, this is not for sure stamp every time it's this way, but when I see sugar-free, the little flags go up in my head. Well, that's got to have those chemicals in it: the aspartame, the sucralose, the equal, the splendas, maybe there's a saccharide.
Hi, baby girl.
More people joining here. So sugar-free, just be mindful. It's likely going to have your chemical sweeteners. When there's no sugar added, that's awesome, usually. But a lot of times it can have, it could have a lot of fruit in it. So we do want to look at our carbs and our sugars, because we still want to keep sugars down, but no sugar added means they didn't add any sugar. But if it's made with a lot of fruit, there's already sugar in the fruit. They didn't add fruit, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have sugar. So no sugar added is a better choice usually, but we still need to do some investigation on what's in the food. The 5% 20% rule. I'm going to show you a label in just a minute. But just so you know, when we're looking at it, because you're going to see percentages, it's going to have how many carbohydrates. It's got 10% of the daily value for a 2,000 calorie diet. And that's typically what they base it on. But if something is 5% or less, it means it's not a good source of that, which might be great, because if you are trying to avoid, say, saturated fat, and it's 5% or less, that's a good thing. But if you're trying to get more fats in your diet, and it's less than 5%, then you're not going to get enough fats from this particular product. Something that's 20% or more means it's a good source of this product. So if you're trying to watch your carbs and it's 25% of your daily allowance of carbs, that's a good source of carbs, but you don't want a good source of carbs. You're trying to cut your carbs. This is an example, of course. But again, 20% or more means it's going to have a lot of it and a good source of it, or a good, if it's got 20% of your iron intake, you might want that, especially if you're low iron. So 20% or more just means it's a good source of it. So these are the percentages that I'm talking about right here. So for this label, it's got 10% of fat. So it's kind of in the middle. It's got some fat, but it's not a high fat product, for example. It's got it's got 5% saturated fat. So that's good. It's a lower on that lower end. Of course, with saturated, we want to go as little as possible on those. So added sugars, it's more than 20, it's 20%, so 20% or higher. This is probably something I would avoid 99% of the time, based on just that right there, because 20% is too high for me, because I don't want that much sugars. If it was 20% of my something else, my vitamin D or my calcium or my iron, see, like the iron here is down, it's 45%. So whatever this thing is, it's a great source of iron. So if you're trying to put more iron in your diet, you want to see anything 20% or more. All right. So when we're looking at our nutrition facts, first and foremost, you want to see how many servings per container and what a serving size actually is. And by the way, what a serving size actually is, it's not like what they suggest, or what the USDA, is suggesting. It's just a common amount. You decide, or your nutritional doctor, or, like this program, we're going to decide for you, like how much, like, for example, carbohydrates, we say half a cup. So if this is a rice, for example, and it said serving size half a cup, oh, well, that's exactly what, Dr. Infantino says. So that's right. But in this case, it's 2/3 of a cup. Understand that your calories and all these other carbohydrates and other things are based on something a little more than what you're going to have, because you're only going to have half a cup if it were like a rice, for example. But big mistake, I see people don't pay attention to what a serving size is and how many servings per container. And I'm telling you this because when I was learning to do all this stuff, and I was in the grocery store looking at labels and just researching, there was a muffin, one of those giant muffins, one muffin. And then on the calories, it had, just a couple hundred calories. The fat was on the lower side. The carbohydrates was lower. And I was like, God, I thought these were just so much worse. I really thought these were worse than it says. But then a little bit later on into my little investigation, I realized it was 2 servings per container, meaning a half of a muffin is as a whole serving. So a half a muffin would have been the 230 calories or whatever it said. So understand what your serving size is when you're checking out your calories and your fats and your carbs and stuff like that. Your nutrients, obviously, we want healthy fats. We want to keep the cholesterols low, carbohydrates fairly low. I try to keep my number around 20-ish or fewer as a general rule. When we're looking at carbohydrates and you're trying to figure out your net carbs, so this particular item has 37 carbohydrates. But what I will do, if I want to find out net carbs, I'm going to minus out my fiber. So 37 minus 4 is 33. So it's got 33 net carbs. Now, usually right below added sugars, if it had a sugar alcohol like xylitol or erythritol, it will say sugar alcohols, and you'll minus that number out as well to get your net carbs. Did that make sense? Did I explain that right? If you nod your head, that will be helpful. Okay. I know you guys are muted, so yeah, so if your total carbohydrates minus fiber and sugar alcohols equals net carbs. That's your net carbs. And you don't want to go over 20 on that. You minus out the fiber and the sugar alcohols because your body doesn't absorb it. They just go through the body. So you don't have to count. So the percentage I went over. Obviously, the nutrients, they have to tell you vitamin D. They don't have to tell you vitamin C anymore, that they changed it. So just check that out. Obviously, the more the merrier there. All right, so let's get into macronutrients. So when you're looking at your label, you noticed it had the fats and the carbohydrates and the proteins. The proteins differ for everybody, so that's why they didn't give a percent on that. But if you look up macronutrients, there's 3 of them: the protein, the fat, the carbs, and the fats. So your proteins are your fish, your chicken, your poultry, your eggs. It can be dairy. Dairy can be a good source of protein if you can tolerate it. When or if you bring it back after 12 weeks, cottage cheese, yogurt can be good sources of protein. Obviously, the shake, another way to get your protein in. You want to try to get about, and if you're brand new, please do not worry about this. If you're not getting enough protein and you're turning your journal pages in, I will tell you, hey, you're not eating enough protein. I'll tell you. So don't worry about it. But just so you know, do you want to do your desired weight times 0.7? So for most women, we're going to be between 80 and 100 grams of protein per day. Fats, those it's going to be your avocados, your avocado oil, coconut oil, butter, your let's see what else we got there. Your oils, your butter, your salmon, your fatty fish will be a combination of both protein and fats. Dairy also will be a combination of proteins and fats. So if you're too high on your fats, and dairy is saturated, always saturated. So if you go low fat or non-fat yogurt or low or non-fat on the dairy, it's probably going to be a better choice unless you're short on fat. It's not all bad. I like to go 15 to 20 grams of fat per meal at least. But don't worry, again, don't worry about that. I'll catch it when we're looking at the journal pages. Carbohydrates, typically we think that as breads and pastas and rice and tortillas and things like that. But the picture is exactly right. That's what we really want to see. So this is why I make 4 categories. So I put my food in 4 categories. So there's proteins, fats, carbs, and veggies, because I want to limit those starchy carbs like lentils and brown rice and quinoa and yams and winter squash. Those are all in the carbohydrate category. They're very carby kind of vegetables. So we'll put them in the carb category and we'll keep them limited to half a cup. But the vegetables, on the other hand, I want you to eat as much as you can stand it because this is where your nutrients come from. This is your anti-aging. This is your fibers. This is your vitamin A and your vitamin C's, and just a lot of good, healthy antioxidants. Your anti-aging, very, very helpful. Carbohydrate, fruits, a carbohydrate as well. So keep in mind your fruits go in the carb category. So that's why I separate that out and I make that 4th category. So if you have, good 4 to 5 ounces of protein, a small portion, half a cup of your carbs, you've got a healthy fat and at least a half a plate of vegetables, you're probably going to do very well. So let's break those down. So let's talk carbs. This week we did go over some of the list of things which you can find in the group in the private group. But when we're looking at like breads, when you guys get back out into past your 12 weeks, and if you choose to bring things like breads back, there's certain breads that are going to be better choices. So this information is going to help you figure out whether your bread is, well, not all of bread, but is a good choice. So now if you choose to bring oatmeal back after your 12 weeks, you definitely want to go original over the instant. The instant is a higher glycemic. Now, you guys have heard me talk about the glycemic index. If we have foods that spike our insulin levels up too fast, it puts us up here in the fat burning zone. We want to stay here, or sorry, in the fat storage zone. We want to stay here in the fat burning zone. But it bypasses the burning zone and goes straight up into storage when we get things like instant, when we get breads made with, or products like tortillas or whatever, made with enriched flour, white flour, bleached or wheat flours. Those are very high glycemic flours. We want to avoid those. Instead, on our breads, we want to see words like stone ground. You want that word 100% whole grain, not just made with whole grains like we learned earlier, but 100% whole grain. That means they haven't taken out the fiber. Fiber will slow that glycemic spike. So we want 100% whole. Buckwheat, whole rye, if you're at past 12 weeks, of course. Buckwheat we can have now, but these are lower glycemic choices. There's flourless breads out there. That 90-second bread, you make it with flaxseed, that's flourless. So that's a good thing that we want to see on our labels. So other things that you want to avoid that spike blood sugars up, and carbohydrates are the only ones that do that. Fats and proteins do not. So that's why I'm putting them here. But modified maltodextrins, modified cornstarch, potato, corn or cornmeal, we're going to avoid those products. We will choose instead cassava flour, almond flour, coconut flour, arrowroot should be on this. Oh, it's right there. Those kinds of flours are going to be much lower glycemic and land you in the fat burning zone. And that's if you stay in portion control. It doesn't mean we can have a loaf of bread or a bag of chips that's made with cassava flour or arrowroot flours. You got to stay in your portion control, but they're not going to spike like potato chips or the other stuff. Vinegar can help lower the glycemic index. Yams are they're a carbohydrate, but they're full of fiber, so they're good. And anything that's high fiber is going to be a really good choice. So let's go into the sugar names. We went over that in depth yesterday. I had a whole list of 57 names, something like that. But these are the basics. These are what you're going to see a lot. High fructose corn syrup, number one most highly addictive ingredient you will have in your food. Avoid it like the plague. This is what causes the fatty liver. So we want to stay away from it. It's very, very addictive and it's very processed. Evaporated cane juice, it's a fancy name for sugar. Brown rice syrup, beet sugar, corn syrup solids, corn syrup. It's all very processed, straight to your bloodstream kind of sugar. Sucrose, dextrose, and honey. Those the ones we want to see: monk fruit, stevia, and other names for stevia is Reb A, Reb B, and Reb M. Your lower glycemic sugars are coconut sugar, date syrup, and maple syrup. Now, if those things are on the ingredients list, those will be in the category of added sugars. Monk fruit and stevia are not an added sugar because they're not a sugar. They are a sweetener, but they're not a sugar. But number three, they are all sugars, so they are on your list, on your nutritional list. And then sugar alcohols like erythritol and xylitol. Again, those are going to be under the carbs, but we get to minus those out when we're trying to figure out net carbs. And then lastly, of course, we're going to avoid aspartame, which is the equal, another name for it is amino sweet. Sucralose is those yellow packets. And then saccharin. These are chemicals. which are bad for the body. So we want to avoid those. All right, fats. So again, we're looking at our nutrition label. We see that that example that we had 10 grams of fat. But is it bad or is it good? I don't know. It depends on what the ingredient list tells me. Because if I see in there that there's nuts or seeds or avocado or anything on this enjoy list, maybe it's made with salmon, maybe it's made with egg yolks or butter or ghee or MCT oil, like coconut oil. That is going to be something I would say yes to. So the fact that it had 10 grams of fat, all right, cool. I like it because it was made with one of those things under the enjoy list. However, if the label is the same exact label, but it says 10 grams of fat, but all I see is soybean or palm kernel or shortening or hydrogenated oils or margarine or any of those other seed oils, I'm going to run for the hills and put it back on the shelf, and I'm not going to buy it. So again, the nutrition label is a clue. Okay, there's fat in here, there's carbs in here, there's whatever, but we want to know where it's coming from to make our final decision. Proteins, whey versus soy. I'm a big fan of whey. Now, some people have allergies to whey, so I would probably lean more towards the other vegan proteins like pea protein, things of that nature. Those protein shakes, they make those complete. But soy can be a hormone disruptor, so it's often very, very, very processed. So I'm not a huge fan of the soy protein. Once in a blue moon, it's fine, but I would stay away, especially if you have any kind of female cancer histories like uterine, breast cancer, ovarian cancers. I would stay away from soy altogether. Eggs are a wonderful complete protein, but please do yourself a favor. It makes such a huge difference when you're looking at your labels of your egg cartons. Make sure it says pasture raised on there, or at minimum, at least organic, because organic means they were fed organic food and they had to have some level of sunshine, which means the pasture raised or at least organic are going to be higher in omega-3s, which is anti-inflammatory. Conventional eggs can be an inflammatory. So there's a big difference on where the eggs, how they were raised, and the chickens that they came from, how those chickens were raised, and what those chickens ate. It matters. Your great sources of proteins: meats, chicken, fish, seafood, pork. Dairy can be a good source of protein. Again, not coming back till after 12 weeks. But if you want to choose to try some yogurts, no sugar added. You may add your own sweetener, of course. Add some fresh blueberries or frozen blueberries to that yogurt or cottage cheese. But dairy can be a great source of protein. Incomplete proteins, I know people say, I want to eat more beans and more nuts or seeds to increase my protein intake. Yes, these things are very nutritious. They have a lot of health benefits. And a lot of them have omega-3s, but they are incomplete proteins, which just means they're short of all 9 essential aminos. So if you have all 9 essential aminos and enough of them in the product, it's a complete protein, like an egg or a piece of chicken. But if it's a nut or a seed or a bean, soybeans are the only exception. Soybeans are a complete protein. But again, I would suggest we avoid those mostly. A little edamame here and there is okay, but again, soy can be a disruptor. But I just wanted you guys to be able to understand that they are incomplete. They're aminos, so that's great. Aminos have a lot of different health benefits individually. So I'm not saying those are bad by any stretch. I'm just saying they're not a complete protein. All right, so bonus round. Now, if you want to get this list, I have it in the group, the drinfantino.club, both the sugar list and the buzzword list. This is part of the buzzword list, but there's all kinds of things in here, like words we can't pronounce. That's why they even initial this one, BHA, BTH, but it's common. It's pretty common. But it keeps food from changing color. It's a preservative, which is why they use it. But it does have side effects, including behavior, altered behavior, increased risk for cancers. It's an antioxidant, or it's an oxidant, which means it ages you. So we don't want to go for those. We want to avoid as much of that as possible. The sodium nitrates, that's what you're going to find in like salami or pepperoni, but it will jack up your blood pressure, and it can put you at higher risk for pancreatic cancer, which is one of the worst cancers. So you don't want that. Now, yesterday I did talk about the cochineal or the carmine. And here's a little picture of it, just so you know what it looks like. We talked about artificial colors, like I have over here, but so the actual cochineal coloring, because this is the red color, so they use the shell of this bug for coloring. But honestly, it might even be better than some of these artificial colors that they've been adding, the red dye number 40 or blue dye number whatever. All of those dyes are really, really, really unhealthy for us. So we want to be sure that we're avoiding those. So, we want to go for foods that are colored. It'll say beets or blueberries or turmeric or whatever. It's used for coloring. You're like, okay, that's cool. But if you see cochineal, carmine, confectioner's glaze, or shellac, you know it's coming from an insect. So you can make your own choice there. Maybe do a little research and see any negative benefits on this little bug, but I just want you guys to be aware of it. Also down here at the bottom, glyphosate, it's basically Roundup, and that's what they put on a lot of the products on it's a weed killer, it's a pesticide, it's an herbicide. So, but what it does is it dries out the crops, it makes it easier to harvest. And when we were talking about gluten earlier, to me, I think that's what's causing people's gut disruptions, probably more so than the actual gluten. There's plenty of people with gluten sensitivity or celiac disease, all of that stuff. That's possible. It's very possible and probable on some people. But I think it's the chemicals they're putting on the food that's really causing the disruptions. Again, this list will be in the group. All right, so to recap, as we learned today, just looking at the calories and how much fat and all of that stuff, it's not going to tell you the whole picture. You got to know where's that fat coming from, where the carbs are coming from, all of that sort of stuff. And so once you know what your macronutrients are and you're looking for them on your nutrition labels and you're looking at them in the ingredients list, hopefully today's talk was a little enlightening for you, so you have a better idea of all of that. So if you want the list, the sugar list, again, it's drinfantino.club down here. So now I will open it up for questions. Does anybody have any thoughts about foods they're eating? In fact, if anybody has a product, we can do it in real time live right now. If you know there's something in your cabinet and you're just not sure, if you want to run and go get it, we can do it together right here. Or if you have a question on something unrelated to label reading, I'd be happy to answer that for you as well too.
Tammy,
Tammy,
can
I
I
have
ask
a question. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Cindy. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I have a question
Cynthia.
about carbs. You said 20 carbs. Is that per meal or per day? Or
Yeah, when I'm looking at a product, when I'm looking to sit down to a meal, if the product is much over 20, I'm probably not going to do it.
okay.
So like when I talk about the glycemic index, and if you look up pasta, for example, it's got a glycemic index on the lower side, but it's so high in carbs. That's why when I talked about the glycemic load versus the glycemic index, the glycemic load is a little more accurate because it's also taking into consideration how many carbohydrates it has. So you look at the carbs, a serving, and who's eating a serving? Like we go to restaurants and they give us an entire plate, and that's a serving. But really, a serving is a half a cup. So we're just eating so much more. So again, so if I'm looking at, oh, I want pasta for dinner, and I see it's got 41 servings or 41 grams of carbs for one serving, and a serving is this much, I'm probably going to avoid it. I know I'm going to avoid it.
Right. Okay.
Again, you're minusing out the fiber, and if it's something that had a sugar alcohol, you minus that out too. If that doesn't bring you closer to that 20 mark, it's probably too hot. Unless you're going to do one of those gardening binges that you do for 6 hours digging up
Right.
whatever. I know you do a lot of gardening and yard
Yes.
work. So if
Right.
especially if it's like shoveling or heavy work, you're not just, spraying the leaves or something. If you're working and carbs are your energy. So carbs aren't always the enemy, but you better
Right.
use them. You better spend them. If you're going to consume them, you've got to spend them, because
Right.
otherwise they get stored in the liver as triglycerides. And if we're not spending them, that's how we get the fatty liver.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great question. Thank you for that. Lisa.
I was just curious, and I think we talked about this very briefly before, but I don't know that I ever got clear on an answer. I don't know that either one of us was clear, but in the program, it states that we can have yams.
Yes.
However, I didn't realize until after I started the program that there's actually a difference between yams and sweet potatoes. Like a lot of people tend to confuse them, right? And so they're actually structurally different. So I guess I wanted to clarify that. Is it actually yams, which are hard to find?
Yams and sweet potatoes are similar on the glycemic index,
Hmm.
and it very much depends on how you cook them.
Yeah.
So if you boil them, they're going to be a lower glycemic, which might be a great way to do it, because if you boil them, it's easier to peel, and then you puree it, and then you can add some cinnamon or some Lakanto maple syrup and make it almost dessert-like. Versus if you bake them, then they're going to be higher glycemic. So
Mhm.
it just depends on how you make them. And
Okay.
honestly, I really don't think I know the difference between yam and sweet potato, because I think the store has it wrong half the time, and the store changes. Like the darker ones, I thought the darker ones were the yams and the lighter ones were the sweet potatoes. And then I see it switched. I'm like, what? Wait, which is which? So honestly, you're right. We talked about it, and I probably didn't know the exact answer.
Yeah.
But similarly, on the glycemic index and their amount of carbs, they do have a similarity in that way. So yeah, you can have them both, but stick with your limit of half a cup.
Yeah, it's not a huge concern for me right now because I'm having to go backward and kind of start from the beginning again. But I do know that sweet potatoes don't really work for me. Like I feel like they tend to trigger flare-ups. So I was just wondering if that was clarified or what. It's just so hard to find yams here.
You're right. You're right.
And the canned ones, we do have like a little tiny section with canned yams, or what they're calling yams, but they're full of crap. Like they're full of, all kinds of junk that is not good.
Yeah, that canned yams reminds me of the traditional Thanksgiving yams.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you just know it's got marshmallows in there. You know it's
Yeah.
got added sugars. It's just no.
Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
No
And
problem.
somebody has a good question in the chat.
Yeah, I just was gonna, how does baking versus boiling make a difference? Honestly, I'm not exactly sure, but when I first started this journey of learning how to, the difference, first of all, what the glycemic index even was, and what that even meant in my body, and what's happening in my body. So I started learning about that. So I started, Googling, the different things. So if I said, what is the glycemic index of a strawberry? What is the glycemic index of a potato? What is the glycemic index of a yam? Whatever I was asking, it would come up with one simple answer. But nowadays, and I've been doing this for 20 years, but nowadays, because AI is so smart, it will give me 18 different answers because there's 18 different versions because, well, if you boil it, it's going to be this number. And if you fry it, it's going to be this number. And if you steam it, so you have to read through the things and then decide, well, how am I going to cook it before I know my answer? But I don't know why I don't know why, what it does. Seems to me if I was to fry it in, like, for example, a coconut oil, when you pair a carbohydrate with a fat, and it's a higher glycemic carbohydrate. So typically, if you ate it all by itself, it might tend to spike blood sugars. If you pair it with a fat, it's not going to spike as quickly. But frying didn't seem to pan out in my glycemic index. So I would say let's just do a little bit of research and Google on that. But why it actually changes boiling versus baking, I don't really know. It's just the way the heat gets to it.
If I could add something, I'm just looking at
Yes,
ChatGPT.
perfect.
And it says that boiling it retains the resistant starch, which is
Oh,
digested more slowly, leading to a lower GI.
there it is. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Baking
You're
breaks
hired.
down more starches into something, 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 causing blood sugar to rise faster. So maybe that's the answer.
Oh, awesome. So can you say that again? It slows the resistant.
It says starch structure changes with cooking method. Boiling sweet potatoes preserves more resistant starch, which is
Preserves.
digested more slowly, leading to a lower GI. Baking breaks down more starches into gelatinized, rapidly digestible forms, causing blood sugar to rise faster, thus a higher GI.
That made it make sense. Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
Very, very good. Great question, Terrell. That's a great question. And you stumped me, so that's pretty good. That's a fun game we can play, right? So similar to dehydrating fruit. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Dehydrating fruit does not remove any of the sugars. It only removes the water. So it looks smaller, like a grape versus a raisin. And we tend to eat more of it, which means we're eating more sugars, which in turn can raise the blood sugars. Hopefully that made sense. Awesome. Oh, anybody else? Great questions, guys. Really great conversation. I like that. And we all learned something. At least I just did. All right, going once. It can be other questions. You guys can come here if you got something else coming up that's you're struggling with.
Tammy, this week you were talking earlier this week about sugars, and some of the sugars that you named, I ordered from Amazon this week. And my question is, can you cook with it and use it like does a cup of that is the same as a cup of sugar?
Great question. And typically the packaging will tell you, but if I believe
You're cooking with it, how
yeah, I believe the allulose was a cup for a cup.
okay.
But usually the packaging will tell you, oh, for every cup of sugar your recipe is calling for, only use half a cup of this. The packaging will usually tell you. If
You
it
can
doesn't,
Google it too. Googling will tell you too.
Yeah.
there's that. And you can also go to the company. There's a website or a contact us on the packaging, and you can ask them, hey, is this equivalent a cup for a cup of sugar? I'm just trying to, lower my sugar, which they understand. That's why we're buying their stuff. So they will know. Lisa says, for anyone interested, ChatGPT says yams are rare here, but more likely found in international markets. I may need to hit the nearby Asian market. Okay, that was helpful. Yeah, we should go check out those ethnic stores.
Right.
That's awesome. That was great. That was really great. Thank you, Lisa. Man, that was very helpful. Like I said, you're hired. We might be hiring coaches, so we're going in that direction. So I don't get a chance. Dr. Infantina would choose, but anyways. So yeah, thank you guys for everything. Great. Yeah. Not quite yet, but soon. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your participation. I appreciate all of that. Thank you. And I will see you guys all next time. Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks, Tammy.
Oh, you're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you guys.